Welcome to the Pre Nup, the wedding obsessed podcast designed to help you plan your dream day. I'm your host, Adriana, and each week I'm joined by the industry's top professionals, celebs, influencers, and friends who are sharing their best tips, advice, and mistakes they've made so you don't have to. The Pre Nup is a Love Stories TV podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to take you through what a typical initial consultation with a wedding planner looks like, and whether or not you're planning on hiring a wedding planner. I think you'll find this super helpful because it's going to get you started and in the mind frame and direction of where you want your wedding to go, especially if you're finding yourself extremely confused and overwhelmed in those beginning stages. So these are some great questions to start asking yourself. This is one of those episodes you might want to grab a pen and paper for. So if you're driving, listen now, but maybe pull over later and jot it down. But today's guests got engaged and found themselves slightly overwhelmed at the prospect of wedding planning. And I had the pleasure of doing a consultation with them a few weeks ago, almost a month now, and working through some of the pain points with them, such as finding an in-budget venue, figuring out if aesthetics can match logistics, dealing with societal pressures, and so much more. Hannah and David, today's guests, embody the modern engaged couple because they really value a personalized experience that feels authentic to the both of them, as well as a celebration that their family, their friends, and themselves will find to be a ton of fun. I fell in love with them, and they're realistic, they're down to earth, and I'm confident that they're not only going to have a fabulous wedding, but an incredible marriage as well. So Hannah and David, thank you for coming on. I'm so happy to have you guys here.
Oh my God, thank you for having us.
Yeah, wow,
was
what
lovely.
an intro.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I loved it.
I'm glad. I'm so glad. So before we get into all the plans, I want people to know who they're talking to. Just give us like a little idea how you guys met, how you got together.
Well, Hinge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hinge is the
Right on.
place where
Yeah,
people
I mean-
meet to find a spouse. I swear, so many people, so many couples that I talk to, like 75% meet on Hinge.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
Wow.
and it's
Yeah.
funny, the question always comes and I'm like, Hinge. I
Yeah.
don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
just
doing good
happened.
things. It's really, that's specifically the app that seems to be
Yeah.
the one.
I'm not sure what it. Well, we haven't been on it in a long time, so I'm not sure how.
Yeah, when did you guys get
Yeah.
together?
It was like the summer after, that summer after COVID where everyone kind of went wild.
Do I ever?
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
like,
We also went wild in the beginning of it.
It's gorgeous.
And then we met at the end of it.
yeah, it was both of our like last dates we were willing to go on that summer.
Mhm.
Okay.
And yeah, we just like went to a bar and chatted for like 3 hours, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
Couldn't get enough of each other.
well, as soon as he told me he was also an art history major, I was kind of sold. I was
Okay.
like, oh, okay, yep, we have a lot to talk about.
Two artists in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that was what, almost 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years in August. So 3.5 years ago now.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. So it's
Yeah.
been a little while.
It's been a little while.
So how long were you guys together before you got engaged?
3 and some years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so you get engaged fairly recently, within the
Mhm.
year.
Yeah.
And how long after you got engaged did you wait to start with, okay, let's get these wedding plans on our way?
So I
Can
started
that be a
before we
negative
got
answer?
engaged.
So you were pre-engaged. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
Yes.
have a community of prenup brides who are, we call them pre-engaged, and they start
Pre-engaged.
planning their
Yeah.
wedding before, and I love it. I think it's a great thing to do.
When we started dating, it was the first time I ever started like making mood boards and that kind of thing just on my own. And I always share them with him because we're like very open.
I
we
did
share
not make mood
everything.
boards.
Yeah.
But like before we actually got engaged, because I actually started listening to podcasts, that's
Yeah.
how I found you, to kind
Okay.
of learn about, okay, what do I need to do? Because I see things on social media about people planning their venues like years plus in advance.
Yes.
And I don't want to wait like 3 years to get married. And then I'm like, I also want to focus on my career. And then it's like, when am I having kids? Anyway, that timeline starts to like evolve. I'm also just very organized.
You are.
Yeah.
But I more started like reaching out to places to understand what costs were and
Sure.
like what was actually feasible. So I didn't like waste a ton of time in the beginning reaching out to all these places like upstate where you have to buy out a hotel for 3 days. And it's like
Yeah.
$250,000. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, so that's not happening for us.
It's
Yeah.
really jarring, that sticker shock, when you start to find out, oh, this is what it costs. And then it's like, oh, how are all these people
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah. Which is that
That
basically
was
the TikTok
TikTok,
video,
how we
video
got
that
it.
you made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, it resonated with me so much. So, Hannah, go follow her on TikTok. But she had this video and she was talking about just that. Like, okay, we are normal people. We're not destitute. We're not paupers. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
these venues and these vendors are so astronomically expensive. Who can pay for this? And I was like, I'm so glad she said that, because it's not something that I talk about a lot as a person in the industry, but I know that it's something that a lot of people feel. And there's a lot of stigma around pricing with weddings. Cost is so taboo, and what people's
Yeah,
budgets are.
completely.
But I think it's kind of refreshing. I don't find it to be gauche to talk about money, but I never want to pry and, be like, well, what are you guys spending? And,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
this and that? But I think it is refreshing to hear. So if you guys wouldn't mind sharing, what is your general budget around your wedding at this point?
After tips and taxes and everything,
Mhm.
like 90.
Okay.
Basically, after we talked last time, we had some further discussions with our parents.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
I think the total amount, the four of them are-
meaning your parents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
meaning our parents,
Sure.
yeah, are willing to contribute is, and we're very, very lucky to
Yeah.
have this,
Yes.
but it's about $100,000.
Okay.
And that'll include our honeymoon and
Yeah.
our
Oh,
wedding.
yeah. I wasn't including.
So
yeah.
like for the wedding, I think it's something like 80 to 85,000.
So it's all encompassing. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually just did an episode on the beginning stages of planning the wedding. And the first thing, the most important thing, is budget. And I kind of did this whole breakdown on like what percentage you should spend on each thing
Mhm.
per what your budget is. And, long story short, it ends up exceeding 100%. But that's because everything is different. What people are including in their wedding budget is different.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing you say like, honeymoon, this and that. But depending on who you are, that is or isn't included in
Right.
the budget. It's this hard thing to navigate, but I think working by percentages is helpful because you can veer from it, of course, but it gives you a little bit of baseline depending on where you are. And thank you for sharing your budget, because I'm sure there are people who are going to be like, oh my God, that's like a shit ton of
Yeah.
money.
It
Compli-
is a
and
shit
it
ton
is.
of money.
But
Yeah.
I will say this, in New York, where you guys are, like that,
It doesn't actually go that far,
It
which is
doesn't.
kind of shocking.
Yeah.
it's crazy. I think the average cost, it was like $430 per person in New York for 2024.
Yeah. And not to like,
yeah.
I mean, I think this is okay to share, but like that was not our initial cost that we thought we were going to
Yeah.
have.
Right.
And we kind of had to have some very big conversations with our family being like, if you want us to have a wedding, like this isn't basically going to cut it, which is like a crazy thing to say when people are giving
Yeah.
you thousands of dollars.
Sure.
And like I'm in graduate school, like I can't be like, oh, I'll add in $20K to this bucket. Like I don't have
Yeah.
that to add.
Right.
So like there was definitely that negotiation of wanting to be like, this is incredibly fortunate. And if we have to make the decision to like elope and go on an amazing trip instead of doing
Yeah.
this, like we're prepared to do that. But if you want us to have a celebration with family, like it's kind of going to minimally cost this.
And I think the last time we talked to, we were prepared to really cut our costs down like pretty far. I think
Yes.
we were kind of looking somewhere in the like $30,000 or $40,000 range.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not including a honeymoon, and we were kind of gonna think about paying for the honeymoon ourselves.
Yeah.
And that and
Our parents basically were like, no, we want
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
It's incredibly generous. It's, every situation is a little bit different. Like there are some people who their parents pay for the wedding. If that's their custom, that's what they do. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. There's some people where it's a little mixture of both. And then some couples just pay for it in entirety on their own. But you guys, what I really appreciated, especially the first time I met you and talking with you, I think that brides, maybe if they they haven't really even started planning yet. It's so important what you're saying about being realistic with this budget and being upfront with the people who are willing to contribute, because so many people go into it blindly and they're like, it's about this and like we might spend this, and then it ends up going so much over.
Yeah.
Expectations are not met. People get disappointed. This is how the fights start.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ours
even,
were kind of both of our moms like cried to us about it
Yeah.
actually. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has like family dynamics are very challenging.
Yes.
But I do think what's honestly about this process been so interesting to me this far is that like weddings are so loaded. And people have such intense emotional responses to them. And they also can kind of like flip flop. Like at first people will be like, no, it's not worth it. And then when you tell them like, well, then we can't do it. They're like,
wait.
Yeah. Yeah, because you always envision, I think, I like to put it in the perspective of a parent, because like you guys aren't parents yet and I'm not either, but I can think about my parents on my wedding day. And I know it's a big moment for them. And I think, you know, as your kids are getting older and you're envisioning this life, like it's a pivotal moment and it's something that you want to celebrate and you want to be a part of and have like photos and things to commemorate it with. So as much as it's like, oh, save your money and we'll just give you like 10 grand, you could put it toward a house or a car, whatever.
We literally had that conversation.
We had multiple iterations of that conversation. And
yes.
The house and the car will come. Like,
yes.
You know, the house is one thing and that's its own situation. The car,
especially living in New York.
Living in New York. The other thing is, you know, 100 grand. Yeah, you might be able to put a down payment on a place, but likely not in New York. So that's another, which is kind of, I mean, I'm sure someone will argue that you can, but that's like totally probably true. But I think in our neighborhood that we live in, which we really, really don't want to leave. I did
grow up there too, so
I'm
like
grew up
very
there.
attached.
Okay.
Yes.
And you love it, and that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, especially now, I mean, this is totally off topic, but like there's talk that interest rates might go down and like that's going to hike the price of things way up, and it's already so inflated. And
so inflated.
Who knows? Like, is it even a good investment to buy a house anymore?
Yeah.
Oh, completely.
I would say a lot of financial advisors might say no.
Yeah.
Because they're so expensive to upkeep.
Ridiculous. And then there's issues that you run into, and, you know, I'm sorry, I know this isn't technically wedding related, but for anyone listening who's maybe thinking like, oh, put it toward a house or whatever, like as a homeowner, you run into some shit that you never thought. My flood insurance is going up 70% a year. I'm like,
man.
Excuse me, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Totally. Especially in New York. I'm like about to go off the ledge and start deconstructing the American dream, but I'm going to hold myself back from that.
American dream is over, people.
But like, well, the funny anecdote I always bring up is my mom is very fortunate. She bought in the 90s in Brooklyn.
Okay.
She has a brownstone.
Yeah.
So she is one of those lucky people that invested
Smarty
very early, and it's going to pay off for her.
Mom. That was very smart.
But the house has been so much maintenance that like all of her resources have gone into that house. That house is everything for her. Like if someone comes by in New York and assesses your bluestone in front of your house on a landmark block, you are responsible for replacing it. Like that is thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
So there's just the maintenance of a house in New York City is like, I don't know. It's not just the sticker price of purchasing a house. It's everything that comes after it.
Yes.
So,
And then it comes down to this point of like, okay, are we going to dump all of our money into this like asset that is basically bleeding us dry? And what other opportunity are we going to have to throw this party with all the people that we love? Like, we're
I think
young.
That was the big thing for us.
So that was really the impetus of like, we should do this and be with everybody.
Yeah, not having the memory to like, I guess like, I'm a child of divorce, and even as someone who grew up with like a split household, like I always looked at my parents' wedding photos as like, oh, my origin story.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that for us, we were kind of like, we want to have that to show the family we're building. Like, you know, it's this kind of like foundation as much as the whole ceremony of it all and like the wedding industrial complex has maybe taken it to like there still is that like sentimental origin that I think it can be argued in many directions, but we ended up caring about. Yeah.
There's a reason that things evolve and change, but most people still do have a wedding and want to celebrate the love between them like you do too with each other and with the people who love you. So the last we spoke, we were kind of at this place where it's like, all right, we could do this like more traditional type of thing, like, you know, a banquet space or a restaurant or, you know, a hotel ballroom or something of that nature, but what feels authentic for us. So there was definitely one option that I remember, which was this like really, really neat dive bar. That
oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so we got in a massive fight with my mom about that.
About this.
Got it. Snip it. This is done.
My mother, she was not having that. Which, you know, she just, like, it's funny because she grew up on the main line and she has this very, like, old school etiquette associated. But, like, I don't think of her as this, like, completely, like, sticking to the way things are supposed to be type of person. And yet it's been interesting navigating weddings because she's like, you're not getting china? And I'm like,
it's like
there's some things that are ingrained into you.
Have you seen the size of our kitchen?
Where's the china gonna go? Yeah, it's really interesting, especially generationally, the way that our parents perceive weddings versus kind of the party that we want to throw in celebration. Because my parents were like, yeah, it's a formal event. You'll have a black tie wedding. I mean, I was really fortunate. My parents paid for my wedding. Thanks, Gwen and James. But I was like, yeah, kind of what they say goes. So it's funny to hear you say like, oh, we had this idea, but, you know, mom nipped it in the bud. And that's not a knock to mom. You're an angel. Yeah. That's not why we're here. It's just the fact that you'll hear a lot of rhetoric online of do what you want for your day. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. Well, it actually does matter when you love them, you care about their opinion, and they're bucking up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In a big way, too. Yeah.
And, like, is the memory that you want of this to be having fights or disagreements with your family?
Yes, there can be common ground. So, okay, just for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, there was this dive bar, the Hannah and David.
Long Island Bar.
Yeah, shout out to Long Island Bar because that place is awesome.
Yeah, where we were going to have like martinis, cheese curds, burgers, champagne, and just like go in black tie, and it's an old school diner and like lean into it.
Really fun vibe. It was definitely, when they told me, I was like, yeah, dude.
Yeah. I remember you having that reaction. And it's funny, whenever we mentioned that to any of our friends, they were like, yeah, you should absolutely do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, like this is such a great idea. It probably is. Yeah. I think it was a great idea. And we do love that place. And I think that would have been a fun wedding for us. There were definitely a lot of drawbacks.
Yeah. People would have been on bar stools, like sitting at the
there
bar.
wouldn't have been formal seating or formal food arrangements, any of things like that. And the thing is, like, you say to your friends and they're like, oh, that's awesome. It's a night out. But the thing about weddings is you're blending all of these people from all different parts of your life. And like, that might not work for your 90-year-old grandma to be like posting up on a bar.
Loretta.
Loretta. You know, actually, that might have been worth doing the wedding there to begin with.
To see Loretta's face.
Oh my God. The idea of my grandmother.
Oh my God, David.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Oh my God, that's cute.
That would have been priceless. Truly,
Okay, so we nixed Long Island Bar.
Yeah.
Where are we at this stage of venue?
So we submitted our initial deposit, and we're gonna do 90 people at the River Cafe.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay, that's amazing. So, for anyone curious, and I know it varies depending on where you're going. Some places want a $2,500 deposit or $5,000 or a percentage. Is that something that they wanted, a percentage?
50%.
50%.
50,
Yeah. And that's not uncommon either. It's not. It really depends on where you are. Some people do quote unquote initial deposit in installments. So there's like 3 initial deposits or that upfront. And a lot of these like hefty deposits come from like the losses from COVID and like we, we're not going to see those things back and they know it. So 50%, it's
substantial.
A guarantee.
It's a chunk.
Yeah.
And I think that for the listeners was somewhere around $25,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's on a minimum
Yeah.
guarantee.
So for some, we ended up actually choosing the River Cafe because we were like very attached to a restaurant wedding.
Yeah.
Also, as like an interior designer, I was like, okay, if I can pick a space where I like the chairs they have, I like the plates they have, the table setting, everything. I'm like, it's a one-stop shop. They can do it all. I don't have to bring in any rentals. We're not having any of those like extenuating costs.
Bingo.
So that was like a big focal point. And actually, I feel like people are going to be surprised by this. It was the cheapest restaurant.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Shockingly.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because we're not actually buying out the restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah,
They have a
an
separate
event
event space. To buy out the restaurant was $125,000.
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
So that's
is a
something
lot.
that I don't know if you remember this from our conversation, but when the 3 of us were talking, initially we were talking about some restaurant spaces, and that was something that I recommended when looking for restaurants, look for places with an event space. And you guys probably knew that, not to like give myself the credit, but for anyone listening, because
it's a great tip.
I didn't know
honestly.
that.
Yeah.
I did not know.
it's something to think about, because otherwise you're right. You do end up having to do that buyout of a space. And a lot of places they're like, yeah, this is what we bring in a night.
Yeah,
you
you
need to match that.
Make up our Saturday night. Like,
Exactly. So people think restaurant wedding, like maybe it's going to be cheaper. Or even to your point, Hannah, like you said that doing it at this restaurant, everything's there. The tables, the chairs, the linens, the dishes, the silverware. People think maybe I'll do backyard wedding. And like, no, you have to bring all of that stuff in.
And all of the wait staff.
Wait staff.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's every little detail. It's so much more expensive to do it on a private estate.
Yeah.
And they're fabulous weddings. They're great. But they're not cheaper by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Well, and also I knew I was not going to be affording a wedding planner. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm doing this myself.
Right.
I'm
That
not
was a
I
big
want to pick
consideration.
vendors that'll be kind of taking care of themselves, coming in, doing it, leaving, cleaning up, and then a place where they're going to do the takedown themselves. And I'm not going to, at the end of the night, be like, is the linens going to the right place where I have to go take it back to the prop house tomorrow, or like something crazy like that?
Exactly. Yeah. If you are doing something that's a private space, you almost have to have a planner or coordinator,
Yeah.
because there's no way you're going to be there until 2 a.m, ensuring that everything is picked up the way it's supposed to be, back there early in the morning, coordinating vendor pickup. It's just,
No, it sounds awful.
it's nonsensical. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you guys picked a venue. That's so exciting.
Yeah. We're thrilled.
I'm sure.
And we are getting married in a church before.
Yeah.
You are. So
This
is this the same
This
church
is
that we
very-
were talking about?
I believe
It's-
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the one I grew up going to with my dad.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's
Yeah,
like
you
a
say,
sentimentality.
but Hannah was like, oh yeah, I grew up going here. And they were like, you know, it's $5,000, right? And Hannah was like,
I was
we're
like,
not
I
going
don't
to
get a
discount. And
member
they were like,
discount.
nope.
I mean, one thing about the church,
They
they be getting money.
Yeah, they do.
Capitalism's
It's
alive
like quite
and
a
well.
ticket
in
to
the-
get into heaven.
This isn't even a Roman Catholic church. It's what, Episcopal?
Yeah, it's Episcopal.
Yeah. Well,
it's,
capitalism's alive and well in all
Sure,
of them.
you know, Christian. I don't care if you're Christian, if you're Catholic, if you're whatever. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Churches
Yeah.
find a way to make their money. That's for sure.
I think like we find a lot of humor in it. One, because so also as like art history majors,
Yes.
we like it's a stunning church.
Yes.
Like architecturally, it is beautiful, and like the architecture can be the decoration. It speaks for itself.
That's
like,
a
it'll
highlight
be.
of doing something like
Yeah.
that, for sure.
But we like never talked about getting married at a church,
No.
and we have to do like counseling sessions and
Oh,
stuff.
man.
So it is like
Uh-huh.
we're
My
having
mom,
so
we told
much
my
fun
mom
about.
this, and she goes, "Don't say too much." And I was like, what do you think I'm gonna say to the priest?
Don't say too
So
much.
I was like, Mom, like,
Oh my.
you know, to be fair, the deacon hated me when I was growing up when we went to church. Like,
Stop.
absolutely
Were
hated
you
me.
a troublesome kid in church?
Like,
he just has like
Slightly.
ADHD.
Okay.
He,
I don't diagnose ADHD.
Okay, but I do, and
just
I'm
fiddle a little bit
Well,
with
yeah,
the
it's
Bible.
boring.
Yeah.
It's
And-
like we're sitting there for an hour, like,
Yeah.
okay.
And my mom made me be an altar boy, which was such a mistake.
Cute.
Because I had to like bring up the book, and like I was fiddling with that thing the whole time because I was, they have all those little. What do you call it? It's the book
I didn't
markers,
go to
and
yeah,
you have to
yeah.
like flip it to the section, and I would get the section wrong, and it was
Ruining
yeah.
the mass.
Oh yeah, truly, I was a bit of a menace in church for
Yeah.
sure.
So you don't have a close like association with the church. It's like this is really special to us. It's more like this. There's a sentimental piece of it for you, Hannah, growing up
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
And then it's also beautiful and convenient to reception
Yeah.
space.
And I will say that like all four of our parents, even though none of them regularly go to church, are like very happy we're getting married in the church.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's appeasing a lot of like family desires.
Yes.
Yeah, again, like the architecture is the main thing for me. Also, like I think our extended family members really associate weddings with churches. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like hitting a lot of those notes, which is nice.
Yes.
And like, I don't know, I have this interesting, like my parents never baptized me. So
Okay.
thank God David's baptized because
Yeah.
otherwise we wouldn't be able to get married.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. Uh-huh.
But I
Yeah.
like grew up going to church because my dad wanted to expose me to it. His family was very religious. And then like I went to a Quaker school growing up. So I was exposed to Quaker
interesting.
meeting. So I've had a lot of like exposure to spirituality.
Yes.
But not that I like regularly go to a specific faith.
I understand.
you know,
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why I brought that up. But
No, it's
Mm-hmm.
important to note because I think a lot of people get married in churches for reasons of feeling a connection to the religion itself.
Mhm.
And that is not always necessarily the case. Like
yeah.
I would say that I'm Italian Catholic. It's more of a cultural thing.
Yeah,
for
that's me.
than-
Yeah, totally.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
you just are. I had a girlfriend get married a few years ago, and her husband is Christian, and she's Catholic. So like same pool,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not very far off. But she was like, "We're getting married in the Catholic church," and he's like, "But you don't even go to church." And
Do
she's
you
like,
still
"It's-
have to get baptized? Do you have to convert into Catholicism?
No, you don't
Okay.
have to. She just wanted to get married in the church, and he didn't have to get baptized or anything.
Okay.
But he's very religious, and she's not.
Interesting.
But she was like, "Yeah, it's just what we're doing. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way I'm Italian. Like, her parents are off the boat. Like, they're
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
married
Oh,
in the
yeah.
Catholic
In a
church.
Catholic-
It's
Yeah.
not.
She didn't have a choice.
was
it's
it
not
like
a
a
question.
2-hour ceremony?
They're long.
They're so long.
Ours is going to be 30
Yeah,
minutes.
I'm like,
in and
30
out.
minutes.
That's nice. Well,
Yeah.
that's another deterrence for people to get married in the church. It's like,
Totally.
it's so goddamn long. Mine was.
Yeah.
There's audio from my own wedding ceremony. Me and my husband were like, "Oh my god, this is so." They're so long. And it was boring. Like my wedding
Yeah.
ceremony was really boring, but it was in a Catholic church, and it was like
Totally.
the whole 9 and whatever. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous,
Yeah.
but it was boring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say, like, this Episcopal church is like, a Brooklyn liberal church. It's very like, whatever you want to do, like, we're happy to do it. I don't think we're required. Well, okay.
Well,
that's not
they
true. They
sent
have a
us
whole
one of the
packet.
wildest contracts I've ever seen in my life.
What did it say?
It-
First, you can't have flowers.
No, that's not true though.
You can put them on the altar, and if they're there, they need to remain as they are a gift to God.
Yeah, you can't take them off the altar, and you can't put them in the aisles. And also, I was reading through this packet. Hannah didn't read through the packet. I read the
didn't. I was
packet
like, I don't wanna
word
know,
for word.
actually.
This is a product of my dad being a lawyer, right?
Sure,
I
of
read
course.
these packets like word for word
You
because
have
I'm
to.
like,
Yeah.
what agreement am I signing?
Sure.
And truly, you have to sign an agreement with God. And I'm like, who's opposing counsel here? Like, I have so many jokes about this. I mean, like,
I'm worried about getting. I feel like we're offending people. I don't know.
No,
I,
you know what? I probably do it a lot. I just want to say, like, I am raised Catholic. My dad is a devout Catholic, and like,
yeah.
this is never trying to insult anyone's religion. Like, I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. The institutions themselves do some like wacky stuff. And it's
Yeah.
okay to be critical of like the heads of
totally.
institutions while still appreciating what the religion is. So like, this is not a knock to the faith at all. It's just like, who is signing on God's behalf?
Oh, yeah.
Like the bishop. Like,
I
what
don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of like power and authority, and you're like,
Yeah.
Really?
do we get to question this at all?
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'd like to make a few amendments to the contract.
God mentioned something different to me.
Yeah.
He came to me in a dream. No, but okay. So I like the fact that you guys decided on this, and it's for a few different reasons. It's not like you guys are, pagan like devil worshippers, and you're like, we're just gonna get married in the church for shits and gigs.
No, not at all.
We actually had I was like, let's just walk there like on a Sunday afternoon and like come see it. And like David sat down and he's like, this is the most beautiful church I've ever been
beautiful
to.
church.
Oh, you guys,
Yeah.
it's
It's really pretty.
That's really, really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so veering a little bit from ceremony, what else have you guys done since last month before you did anything?
Yeah.
So this is all like
Vendors.
unfolding in the last month.
Yeah.
We have a
found vendors.
photographer
Okay.
that we're like pretty much ready to submit the deposit to.
Barring my dad going through the contract a little too.
Yeah, which I have some
in
stuff
too
to
much
say
detail.
actually.
Well,
Oh,
that's
man.
probably really familiar to people, like parents
Yeah.
combing through contracts, and especially your dad's an attorney, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure he has a lot of
quite
choice
thorough.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that the contract says basically that like she owns the right to our images, as in like she can post them on Instagram, she can post them on social media,
Which
an
is very
editorial, whatever.
common for a photographer's
Exactly. And so it was interesting because the feedback from your dad as a lawyer is like, who owns the copyright? But I'm like, as
Who cares, Dad?
I'm
If you're
like-
listening, Dad, who cares?
But I was also like, my like personal for my LLC interior design, I have the same clause because
Right.
I'm like, I have to promote the work I'm doing.
Totally.
So like I like as a kind of fellow like independent contractor creative, I'm like, I get it. Use
Yeah.
the images. Like
Yes.
get your editorial features, girl.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
yes.
And you can, I mean, photographers will give you an opportunity to purchase the rights to the
Mhm.
photos,
yeah.
but that's a cost because that prevents them from being able to use it, like you said, for
Yeah.
promotional
Totally.
reasons, and that's like a loss to their business. How
Yeah.
else are you supposed to showcase something
Mhm.
that's so visual? So that I've never seen a photographer's contract that didn't include that they
Yeah.
own the rights.
I'm gonna let him know that.
No, we got an
you know,
email last night at like 11
yeah,
p.m.
oh my
being like,
God.
this is unreasonable. And I'm
But-
like, no, it's not.
See, okay, so here's the thing. This is where like I grew up with my dad being a lawyer, and this is just the way he talks. Like
Yes.
when I was a kid, he would talk to me in full like legalese, and I'd be like, huh? Like what? And then eventually you understand it, and so like when he's saying this is unreasonable, he's not being like,
Like,
I don't
no,
like this
yeah.
person. He's being like, this isn't a reasonable like
It
for
just-
contract.
Yeah, he's
It's
like,
Yes,
if you're
blatant
ever in a
terms.
lawsuit, this is going to cause a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yes.
thank you, Dave.
Big Dave, if you want to purchase the rights to these photos, you probably can, but it is
Yeah.
going to cost you. So it's just something to keep in
Yeah.
mind, because whatever photographer you choose, they'll have that in the
Absolutely.
contract.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I deal with a lot with couples. Like
Mhm.
there's certain venues, vendors that require certain things. Like let's just say event insurance, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of venues will require the
Oh.
couple to purchase event
Mm.
insurance.
River Cafe did not.
Yeah,
they did,
and
though, have a select vendors list we had to choose from.
Oh yeah, that was
that's
interesting.
a thing. That's a
Mhm.
thing.
We didn't
for
end
sure.
up choosing
Yeah, well,
from
because
it.
we were like, well, what about all these other people that have worked here before? They're like, oh, they're fine.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I was like, okay, so you gave this to us because
Yeah, sometimes people will just put things in writing, like just as a safety precaution, just so you're not like bringing in someone who's not insured. Or, but as
Uh-huh.
long as someone
Yeah.
can provide a certificate of insurance,
Yeah.
typically they're fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, some places do have a
Mhm.
list of vendors that you can only use. But in certain circumstances, we'll run into things where it's like, well, this seems crazy. I'm like, you're going to be hard pressed to find a vendor or venue that won't
Right.
say the exact same thing. So you either like
Totally.
them or you
Well,
go with someone else.
And because Instagram is like the central way to have
Yeah.
like prospect client acquisition. Like
Is that where you're finding most of your vendors from Instagram?
Yeah, I am actually. I mean, some of them are like venues we didn't pick their preferred vendors lists.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
like
yes.
pulling from every
Which is
Actually,
really smart.
Our DJ we found through a DJ that we originally wanted to go through who recommended this DJ.
because he wasn't available.
Because he wasn't
we
available.
changed our date. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
He was very nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great referrals are awesome, and if someone isn't available, that's a really good lesson. Ask them, like, who do you like? Because a lot of times, I mean, I know when I'm busy, I have 4 or 5 people that I'm like, these people are great. I would trust them with
Right.
my own wedding, like, reach out to them.
Mhm.
And it might seem awkward from a potential client's perspective, like, oh, I'm asking for someone else's like opinion. They're in the same
Yeah.
field.
Mhm.
But people in the wedding industry work very closely together, even if they do the same thing. Like, they'll want to refer you to someone good because it's good for their own reputation
Yeah,
too.
definitely.
Well,
Definitely.
I also like, I don't know, I've had this kind of way, this might be a tangent, but I've approached vendors through this kind of like, what is the aesthetic, the vibe, the kind of like perspective I want to have in the memories of what we're doing.
Mhm.
So like, especially with florist, photographer, DJ. And I think like, it was interesting because like, I think people ask where do you start looking for vendors? Like,
Yeah.
where do you start doing this? And this is part of the reason why I like started culling through saving things on Instagram into a weddings folder that I had that I could like refer back to. So I knew, but it's just because like you shouldn't just reach out to random people. You should make sure that they're actually going to provide the services that you are
Yeah.
looking for.
Right.
Like I wanted film photography. I
Yeah.
did not want traditional wedding photos. I did not want them to look like editorial. I don't want to have like a staged line of our family. I want
Yes.
them to be very candid, very kind of like messy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think that almost understanding what your vibe is first before you start reaching out to people is so important because you're
It's-
going to waste so much time.
It's so true. I'm so glad you said that, and I'm so glad you have that understanding, because I think when people start, they're like,
Yeah.
everyone and everything. Like I get 10, 20 inquiries a day, and I would say like 10%, maybe less, are serious. Like
Right,
the rest
yeah.
of them are just like, I found someone and like, let me reach out. It's
Yeah.
like, am I even what you're looking for? So
Yeah.
vetting them first, it's such smart advice, Hannah. It is.
Because it's also like you don't want to waste your own time either. The amount of times I've like gone on a florist website and I'm like, nope, not happening.
That's okay.
Not
And
happening here.
Listen, there's for someone, they're not for me.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that it's like just be targeted with like what understanding. And it's not that you have to be like, I know that I exactly want a blue lily here.
Right.
Like it's more just understanding the vibe, the energy, the types of people you want building.
Something I like to
that
tell
day.
Hannah is that she uniquely has an understanding of her vibe
She
because
does.
it's sort of her job to understand vibes as in a general subject.
Vibes is vibes is
Yeah.
vibes.
Vibes
Nope.
is vibes.
I, on the other hand, wouldn't know where to start and would probably not start because I
Right.
would just be like, well, I don't know what to do.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were left to your own devices, David, you would have to just hire a wedding planner.
Yes,
But you
I
have
would,
someone who is
100%.
super diligent. And
Yeah.
I say this probably almost every episode. I'm sure you've heard me say it, Hannah, but a wedding planner is a luxury. It's not a necessity. And if
Mhm.
you're willing to put in the work, which you are willing to
Helping.
support.
I do the Excel support.
Spreadsheet.
I've made so many spreadsheets.
And that's helpful. It is
Yeah.
helpful. But if you're willing to put in the work and effort and you like it, and like, yeah, you can absolutely do it on your own. And you guys are proof of that. You're doing a great job. I want to follow up and see where you are in like 6 months. So what is the actual wedding date?
February 14th, 2026.
Stop it, you little Valentine.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And
We just passed the year mark.
I
The
know.
funniest thing about that is we did not pick that date because of Valentine's
Yeah, we
Day.
But
actually-
it's so sweet.
We picked it because of our honeymoon.
Yeah, we picked it
Where are you going for honeymoon?
because we
David?
want to go. This was Hannah's idea. So
But
as I
it's
was telling
because
you
it's
before,
David's dream.
yeah, this is so. As I told you before, I'm a huge car guy,
Yes.
and every year, this current weekend, like
Uh-huh.
the one that we're in now,
February like 21st.
21st, in Samaritz, which I know I can't pronounce right,
Oh my gosh.
in Switzerland, there is a car show on the ice lake for the whole weekend,
And
Friday
it's
and Saturday.
all vintage, like, well, I can't list off
Ferraris
what they are.
and
I mean, I'm not a car guy,
Yeah.
and that sounds cool.
Exactly.
And I want to go somewhere so
Yeah.
bad. Oh my God, it looks, and you're going to have a ball.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
I
So-
want to be Audrey Hepburn. in the
And you
beginning of
are.
Charade.
and I want one of the cars.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally get it. I think
Yeah.
narrowing down your date for whatever reason, even if it's
Mhm.
around, like, it's smart. And you guys are in the Northeast, and it's quote unquote off peak.
Yeah.
Peak is like May,
Yep.
June, September, October. So it's better for availability.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Totally.
for pricing, depends on where you are, you know.
Yeah, I think the River
That
Cafe
was part of the
didn't-
initial
didn't really
decision.
change
Yeah.
pricing, but we.
No, it is actually cheaper
Oh,
in the
Is it?
winter.
okay.
Yeah.
It's
I guess it
fabulous.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't beat that.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. So we have a few more minutes. I want to go through two things we do every episode. We have a session called premarital counseling, and a listener will write in. They have sometimes questions, queries, they need advice on things, and we aim to help them. And I thought I could get your guys' help on this one today.
Okay.
Okay. So we always change names and keep it anonymous. If you ever want to write in, you can email Adriana at the-pre-nup.com or podcasts@lovestoriestv.com. We renamed this bride to Leanne. So
Okay. Hello,
Leanne.
Leanne.
Hey, Leanne.
Okay, Leanne says, I'm a 2026 bride in need of advice. I want to have a small bridal party with my 3 childhood best friends. My fiance asked me to include his 4 sisters as bridesmaids. I have no issue with my fiance's sisters, but I'm not close with them. This might be petty, but I don't envision having my wedding morning and bachelorette party with people I'm not very close with yet. I also don't want to take my bridal party from 3 to 7 people. What would you do in this situation?
I have a strong opinion about this.
Let's hear it.
I feel like your mom and your sister would probably disagree with me, though.
What's your opinion?
I think it's not
Careful.
about them.
Yeah.
It's like, especially, I think part of the thing that adds to it is like, she only wants 3 friends.
Right.
That's a very small, intimate group.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
that probably also means that this is the type of person that's very, very sentimental and tight knit with her friends. And so I think like adding 4 people that she's not close to will probably make her feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
Not because she doesn't want to get close with family,
Right.
but because they're not there yet. And like I'm even someone that's like, I don't even know if I want a bachelorette,
Yeah.
but that's not the time to do that. Like you're allowed to make this about yourself,
Yeah.
especially when it's the
Mhm.
trip that's about the bride celebrating her friends and her kind of last hurrah, I guess,
Yes.
whatever it is for you. That feels like an overstep
Mhm.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But-
guess I would wonder why her fiance wants all 4 sisters. Like
Yeah.
that's a lot of sisters.
It's a
I
lot
have
of
one,
sisters.
that's plenty of sisters.
Totally. Yeah,
You
it's a
know?
lot of sisters. That's my only thing, because I absolutely agree with you, but I'm wondering why it's so important to fiance to have
Mhm.
his sisters. Is this
Yeah.
like pressure from them or family, or it's important to your fiance? Like, I think that conversation needs to happen, because
Totally.
if it is important, then I'm not saying that you should do it, but maybe we can figure out some sort of compromise.
100%.
Well,
That would be what I'd say is like ask your fiance why it's so important for them to be what was it in the bridal party?
yes.
Oh,
to
I
be
thought it was a
bridesmaids.
bachelorette.
No.
No,
Oh
it's to
my
be
God,
bridesmaids.
okay.
Well, she was saying that she didn't want to do her bachelorette and wedding morning with them because they're not
Oh,
like super
okay.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was getting married, my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, had started seeing a girl, and they had only been together for a couple months. And my mother-in-law was like, "Do you care if Hannah?" Her name's Hannah too. Do you care if Hannah gets ready with us and like gets her hair and makeup done? And I felt like such a bitch, because this is like not my nature. I was like, actually, I kind of do, because I
Yeah.
already have a circus
Mhm.
and I don't know her, and like it's nothing against her. I would
Yeah.
want her to come and be a guest and have a great time, but like it's just not something that I want to coordinate more people into. And fortunately, like no one gave me a problem. And now Hannah's my sister-in-law, so it like should have been, you know. I don't regret it, because it really
Yeah.
was like a fucking circus that morning.
Yeah.
Excuse my French. But yeah, sometimes you just have to be like, listen, like, here's my reason. And a healthy debate is okay. Like,
Yeah.
have the conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like it brings up two things for me. One is that, like, these are the types of conversations that you have to be having with your partner. Is what are the kind of emotions behind this request, but also, like, how are we going to navigate kind of handling family conversations and handling family dynamics together?
Yes.
And, like, those are very important conversations at the beginning, like, even prior, I would say, to your wedding day to be having.
Yes.
But it's very kind of relevant to this negotiation. And two, I would say, like, oh, I forgot.
And we'll leave it there. No,
Yeah.
it's I like where you're going with this. I do understand what you're saying for sure. And I think that, you know, for us to like be talking about it and like, you know, you have to talk about it, it's probably not helpful for her. I think like my knee-jerk reaction is just be like, all right, we're not going to do bridal parties. And then you get ready with those 3 girls and you have your pictures and you like kind of
Completely.
coordinate it
I
on
think
your
that's
own.
where we're at, actually.
are you
is
not
we're like,
having a
we're
bridal
not
party?
doing
Absolutely
parties.
not.
I love to hear you say that because
Yeah.
I think that they're just like so nutty.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also
I had a huge one. It's not a knock for anyone, but like
no, some people
it
have
is
like
nuts.
10, 15 people. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's crazy.
It's a lot.
That's also a substantial percentage of our entire guest count. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
seeing it a lot more. Even if people aren't actually not doing bridal party, they want to not do it. And I
Yeah.
think we
Yeah.
just all need to get to a point where
I don't want to
we're-
do the negotiations of it.
No.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it's, you know, and also the matching dress thing. I'm like, I don't know.
it's
like,
cool to put grown women in matching dresses. Like
Yeah.
we all have different body types.
Yeah.
We're all in
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
phases of like, let's just
yeah.
wear what we like.
yeah.
I remember what I was going to say.
Say it.
Okay, number 2. Like there is, I think something we dealt with like very early on when we were kind of like negotiating budget, everything, and kind of where we are now is this picking your battles with your family.
Yes.
Because as much as this is about you two, and I think what's important to us is for us to feel like the day is really about us and it's authentic to who we are. It is not just about you.
Yeah.
And it is about also the families getting together. So I think that's kind of you're allowed to stand up for yourself when it really
Totally.
matters for yourself. But maybe, at least for me, I need to remind myself, not every fight needs to be fought.
That is
I think both of us need to
Yeah.
remind ourselves of
it's
that.
necessary
Yeah.
to be said and necessary for a lot of people to hear because
Yeah.
I think you might really change someone's mind with what you just said. It's an important thing. It's not always all about you. If it were, then you would just elope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, before we end, we have we're gonna do just a rapid fire after party because I don't want to
Okay.
show you on
Oh.
it. It's my favorite part. So they're just like fun little questions.
Okay.
Question number 1, honeymoon hotspot.
St. Moritz.
Moritz.
Yeah.
Fabulous. What song will get you on the dance floor at a wedding?
I have a lot that won't.
Okay.
I have a lot of opinions about songs at weddings. I do like some like old school R&B. And
Oh, yeah.
names of songs are not coming to me right now, but
That's okay.
yeah.
Sing them.
That was a good try.
I'm like, I just know that I have gone on dance floor during some old school R&B.
Yes. I just watched a great Luther Vandross documentary on HBO and I'm like all in my funk like R&B vibe
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's Anything by 50 Cent.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What hors d'oeuvre will you never pass up at a wedding?
Caviar.
A tartare of any kind.
Delicious. Signature cocktail or mocktail?
I drink 2 drinks and that's it.
What are they?
I drink a dirty gin martini Hendrix.
You're so cool.
or a glass of red wine.
It's
Oh my
gross.
God.
I try, I'm like,
that
oh,
is
God.
like that's just like cool as shit.
Yeah.
I love
I drink Negronis and Amaros of pretty much any kind.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're both very specific.
We have very
Yeah.
specific things
I
that
love
we drink.
it.
Yeah.
I love you too. Okay. If you could invite any living dream guest to your wedding, who would you invite?
So this is the one that I had the most trouble with when I was reading these beforehand. Hannah is my living dream guest, so she's already
Kill
invited.
myself. That's the cutest thing I've ever heard. Okay. Everyone else loses forever.
No, I'm like,
David
I
just
can't
won.
say mine.
No, say
Yeah.
yours. I want to hear yours.
Well, I thought I would have Leon Bridges come play because that's the first concert
Oh,
we
that's
ever
a
went
good
to
idea.
together.
So cool.
That,
Yeah.
that was
That's
also a good idea.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. I love
Hannah
those
wins
fancy.
too.
Hannah gets second place,
Yeah.
but it's a really good one. Okay, guys, last question. What is one practical piece of advice that you can impart to any couple planning a wedding?
I have like a
Keep an
lot.
open mind.
Okay.
That's mine. Because and I say that because the church thing was originally like a big no-go for me.
Yeah.
And then we went and I was like, you know what? Why do I care that much?
Right.
It's such a beautiful space and it'll be perfect for us. So let's just do it. Like,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. Very good advice.
Yeah, I think as much as it's really good to have a clear vision, this is kind of along the same lines. Don't be too strict about it because you can make a lot of things work in a lot of different ways and it'll still feel authentic to you. But if you kind of go in with like, I will only have it here at this time in this place, like it's just, you're closing the door to a lot of opportunities.
Yes.
And especially as we started out this conversation, there are so many different budgets, so many different ways of making it work.
Mhm.
Like you can still kind of create your fantasy in a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
So like even I was like, I don't want to do the River Cafe. It's too stuffy. Like it's too classic, old school. I want to do something more like quirky, fun, modern. But I still feel like I'm going to get that with the vendors I'm bringing into the space.
Yes.
So
You
yeah.
can make it your own.
And the food's going to be fucking amazing.
You guys, I'm so excited for you. You are just wonderful people. You're a wonderful couple. I couldn't be happier for you.
Aw.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
This was so much
Yeah,
fun.
this was really fun.
Is there anything you want to plug or share before we sign off?
You can follow me.
Yeah, follow.
Sure.
Follow
Why
this girl.
You can
Wait.
follow me if
Oh yeah,
you
wait.
want.
Should I
but
say my?
Yeah, say your handle.
I wouldn't
I'm not
recommend
an
it.
influencer. I don't know how to do this.
No, it's the same handle.
My TikTok is Hannah Hemmerly Studio, and my Instagram is just Hanhem, HANNHEMM.
I'm going to leave it in the show notes too.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, thank you again. This was so great.
Thank you. Yeah, this is so fun.
Thanks for tuning into the Pre Nup. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform or on the Love Stories TV YouTube channel. Follow at @the_pre_nup and at Love Stories TV on Instagram for more. Have feedback or suggestions for the next episode? Feel free to reach out to us at podcast@lovestoriestv.com.